August 24th, 1814. For the first and only time in its history, the capital of the United States of America is captured by a foreign enemy. The White House, the Capitol building, the very symbols of the young republic are engulfed in flames. How did this happen? How did a battle-hardened British army march 50 miles inland, virtually unopposed, and set fire to the heart of a nation? The answer lies in a battle fought just hours earlier. A battle so disastrous, so humiliating for the Americans, that it was mockingly dubbed the Bladensburg Races. This is the story of the Battle of Bladensburg, a story of veteran invaders, panicked defenders, political incompetence, and a few pockets of incredible bravery in the face of a total collapse. It's the story of the defeat that led directly to the burning of Washington, D.C. To understand Bladensburg, we have to go to Europe. By the spring of 1814, the Napoleonic Wars, which had consumed the continent for over a decade, were finally over. Napoleon was defeated and exiled. For Great Britain, this was a massive victory. It also freed up tens of thousands of their best troops, hardened veterans who had fought and won from Spain to France. And Britain had a score to settle. For 2 years, they had been fighting a frustrating side war with the United States, the War of 1812. With Napoleon gone, America was now their main event. The British plan? A punitive expedition to the Chesapeake Bay. The goal wasn't to conquer territory, but to inflict a blow so painful it would force the Americans to the negotiating table. In August 1814, a British force of around 4,500 men under the command of Major General Robert Ross landed at Benedict, Maryland. These weren't colonial levies. These were elite regiments like the 4th King's Own and the 85th Bucks Volunteers, men who had faced Napoleon's best. And who was there to stop them? The American response was, to put it mildly, chaotic. President James Madison's administration had failed to create a proper defense for the capital. Command was given to Brigadier General William H. Winder. Winder was a Baltimore lawyer and a political appointee with very limited combat experience. His primary job was to call up the local militia from Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And this was the crucial difference. The British had a professional, disciplined army under a single, experienced commander. The Americans had a hastily assembled force of around 7,000 men, most of whom were poorly trained, poorly equipped militia who had never seen a day of battle in their lives. The stage was set for a disaster. As General Ross's army marched north under the scorching August sun, the American command was in a state of panic and confusion. General Winder raced back and forth on horseback, trying to guess the British objective. Was it Baltimore, a vital port? Or was it the symbolic but militarily insignificant capital, Washington, D.C.? The British feinted towards Baltimore, then made a hard turn for Washington. The only logical place to intercept them was at the town of Bladensburg, Maryland. Here, a single wooden bridge crossed the eastern branch of the Potomac River. It was a natural choke point, a perfect place to make a stand. On the morning of August 24, 1814, the American forces began to assemble. But Winder's inexperience immediately showed. Instead of fortifying the town or placing his best troops at the bridge, he devised a flawed three-line defense on the far side of the river. The first line, closest to the bridge, was made up of inexperienced Baltimore militia. The second line was about 500 yards behind them, and the third and final line, containing the best American troops, was a full half-mile behind the second line. The lines were too far apart to support each other. If one broke, the others couldn't effectively cover their retreat. It was a textbook example of how not to arrange a defense. But in that third line was America's only real hope. Commodore Joshua Barney and his 500 flotillamen. These were U.S. Navy and Marines whose gunboats had been trapped and destroyed by the British fleet. Now they were fighting on land, manning 5 heavy naval cannons. They were disciplined, angry, and ready for a fight. But they were the last line of defense, a mile from the battle's start. Around 1 p.m., the British vanguard reached the bridge. They were met with a surprisingly stiff volley of artillery and musket fire from the American first line. The initial British charge was repulsed. For a moment, it seemed the militia might hold. But then the British unleashed their secret weapon, the Congreve rocket. These weren't particularly accurate or deadly, but they were a terrifying psychological weapon. The rocket screamed through the air with a deafening noise, trailing smoke and fire. For the green American militia, who had never seen or heard anything like it, this was the final straw. Panic set in. After firing only 1 or 2 volleys, the entire first line broke and fled. General Winder had failed to give them a clear order to retreat, so it became a chaotic rout. The Bladensburg races had begun. The British surged across the bridge and reformed. They now faced the American second line, commanded by General Tobias Stansbury. This line included the 5th Maryland Regiment, a unit that put up a much tougher fight. For nearly an hour, they engaged the British regulars in a fierce firefight. But General Ross was a veteran campaigner. He saw that a frontal assault was costly. He sent troops on a flanking maneuver, crossing the river upstream. The 5th Maryland suddenly found themselves being fired on from the front and the side. With no support and their flank collapsing, they too were forced to retreat. The second line was gone. Now all that stood between the British Army and Washington, D.C. was Commodore Barney and his 500 sailors and Marines on the high ground. As the panicked American militia streamed past them, Barney's men held their ground. When the British 85th Regiment advanced up the main road, Barney personally aimed one of his 18-pounder cannons loaded with grape shot. The blast tore through the British ranks. The professional redcoats charged 3 times, and 3 times they were blasted back by the disciplined fire from Barney's sailors and the muskets of his Marines. The veterans of Europe were stunned by the ferocity of this small American force. General Ross himself later admitted that his army would have been destroyed if the rest of the American line had fought with such determined resistance. But they were alone. Their ammunition was running low, and they were being surrounded. Commodore Barney, his horse shot out from under him, was severely wounded in the thigh by a musket ball and could no longer stand. Seeing that the position was hopeless and that President Madison and the government had safely escaped, he ordered his remaining men to retreat. Unable to move, Barney was captured. So impressed was General Ross with Barney's courage that he immediately paroled him and ordered his own surgeons to treat the American hero's wounds. Barney's stand was over. The last organized American resistance on the field had been broken. The Battle of Bladensburg was a complete and total American disaster. The path to Washington was wide open. That evening, General Ross and his troops marched into the nation's capital. Following orders to destroy and lay waste, they set fire to the public buildings in retaliation for the American burning of York, modern-day Toronto, a year earlier. The White House was gutted. The Capitol was left a blackened shell. It was the absolute low point of the War of 1812 for the United States. The battle was immediately branded with shame, called the greatest disgrace ever dealt to American arms. But humiliation can be a powerful motivator. The sack of Washington galvanized American resolve. When the British moved on to their next target, the much more heavily defended city of Baltimore, they met a completely different reception. The Maryland militia, shamed at Bladensburg, fought with grim determination. the defenders of Fort McHenry withstood a 24-hour naval bombardment, an event that inspired a lawyer named Francis Scott Key to write a poem that would become the national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. The Battle of Bladensburg remains a stark lesson in military history. It shows how a smaller, professional force can utterly rout a larger, unprepared one. It highlights the dangers of political appointments in military command and the critical importance of training and discipline. While it was a day of national shame, it was also the dark hour just before the dawn. A humiliating defeat that paradoxically stiffened the nation's spine and paved the way for the wave of patriotism that would define the end of the war. What do you think? Was Bladensburg truly America's most disgraceful battle,